Okay, so we are starting with the Common Core ELA CKLA Unit 1, Lesson 5. So our learning target today is that I can read consonant sounds in the code flipbook, I can dictate words using different spellings, and I can ask and answer questions about key details in the story The Big Dig. Okay, so let's review some sounds from the consonant flipbook that you should have learned around in first grade. Okay, here's the spelling for S. Okay, the power bar in the middle, right here, shows that this is a very common spelling. So the longer this is, tells us how common that spelling is. And if you have your flipbook, you can find it on page 2 of the consonant code flipbook. Okay, here is a spelling for the sound, the Z sound. Okay, the power bar shows us that this is not a common spelling. Okay, so compared to your previous S, look at the difference between these two power bars. So the S is very common, and the Z is not. Okay, it can be found on page 12 of the consonant code flipbook. And that sound is Z. So if you go from S, you have that S. And then if you go to Z, you have that Z sound. You can actually hear the vibrations in your tongue. Okay, so this is the M sound. And if you look at this, what does that power bar tell us? Okay, that power bar tells us that this right here is a very common spelling and sound. Okay, and that's a consonant for So if you look in the mirror and look at your lips, just go Your mouth is fully closed, and that's very different between the S and the Z sound. So it's at the front of your mouth, just like the Z sound is Z. Okay, with that Z, you're putting actual voice behind it. It is a voiced consonant where S is not, and neither is Okay, here's an R. Okay, the R is in the back of the throat. And your mouth is fully open. So the power bar tells us that it is a common or uncommon spelling. That's right, it's a very common spelling, and it can be found on page 18 of your consonant code flipbook. Okay, one more. This is our W. So what? Is your mouth open or closed when you look at it? Okay, good, it's open. What? And it has a voice behind it. It is one of our voiced consonants. Okay, so that power bar tells us that it is a common spelling. All right, we have another one. We have Y. Okay, this spelling for Y tells us that it is fairly common, but not as common as our M and our S. Okay, so it is the Y sound. So this word behind here is yes. You have to have that Y sound, and your mouth is fully open, and it is a voiced consonant. Remember, voice means you have to have a sound behind it for you to say it. So yes. Okay, we have X. Okay, the power bar tells us that this is a very common, out of the ones that we've looked at, this is the most common that we've had, more common than W, S, okay, M, Z, and Y. So the X sound is X. X. It's like a K and an S put together. It's the back of your throat, and it is a voice sound. X. So tax, okay? And again, these are review sounds that you should have learned in first grade. Okay, so this power bar tells us that it is a very, very common spelling, okay, and it's the QU. The QU sound is like a K and a W, qua, qua. So when we say this, these two letters make one sound together, it's quit. So qua. So you merge them together and it's quit. Okay? All right, we're not doing that since you're not out. Okay, so let's check these words. I just want to say them together. It's the beginning of the year, so it's okay for you to make some mistakes, but we can learn from them. So I'm going to say these words, and I want you to repeat them. Okay, so mud. Okay, let's do another one. Hug. And last one, sun. All right, so we have mud, hug, and sun. All right, so we are going to read The Big Dig. Okay, so we're going to read this together, so if you can see it on the screen, you're more than welcome to read it with me. So this is called The Big Dig. When we went back to the cliff, the bone man was there with some helpers. They had scraped the side of the cliff to expose a lot of the T-Rex. So will you dig out all of the bones here on site? Asked Nan. No, said the bone man. The next step will be to carve this cliff into large blocks of rock, and then we will wrap the blocks up in plaster, and then the plaster will keep the bones from cracking. Then we will use a large crane to set the blocks on trucks, and then the trucks will take them to my lab. Once the blocks are there, we will start digging the bones out of the blocks. What sort of tools do you use for that? Asked Nan. We use tools a lot like the ones dentists use on teeth, brushes and sharp picks. Kate and I used forks, said Max. How long will it take to carve all of the bones out of the rock? Jack asked. Well, said the bone man, we've got a lot to do and it will take some time because we have to be careful not to wreck the bones. Will you be finished by the end of the summer? I asked. No, said the bone man, you and Max will have to visit next summer and perhaps the summer after that. Then we will catch up on our digging process. So, said the bone man, have you picked out a name for this T-Rex? Yes, I've picked one, I said. All of the diggers stopped digging and looked at me. I said, this T-Rex will be named Max, or if you like, T-Max. And all of the men cheered and Max smiled. Okay, so if you read that with me, there's a lot of those sounds like the S and the W and the M and the Z. There's a lot of those sounds in there. And when you read, make sure you have pauses and inflection on your voice like you were taught in first grade. We're going to read Kate Visits Nan together. Okay, so Kate Visits Nan, all these sounds that we just went over and all of these bolded words right here are the breaks in the syllables. So you need to break those down when you see them. They're necessarily not sounds that you know yet put together, but they're sounds that you can break down and put back together. So Kate Visits Nan, like I said before, we're actually going to answer some questions after we're done with this one. There's only 4 or 5 of them, so bear with me. And when you go through them, make sure you look at those words and break them down. Kate Visits Nan. I'm Kate Skipper. And last summer when I was 9, my mom and dad took me to visit my Nan. Nan is my mom's mom. She's an artist and she has a cabin out in the West. At the start of my visit with Nan, I was sad. It seemed like it would be dull summer. But in the end, I had a lot of fun. I was sitting in the kitchen petting the cat that was sitting on my lap when Nan came in. I just spoke with Jake, she said, and he made us an offer. What sort of offer? He asked if we would like to camp with him and Max. Well, who is Max? Max is the kid and he's 9 like you, and Jake is his granddad. What would we do? I asked. Well, we would hike, look at rocks, cook lunch and dinner outside, and look at the stars and sleep in a tent. Gee, I said, that sounds like fun. When can we start? Tomorrow morning, Nan said. So super short story, and we're going to have a few questions about Kate Visits Nan. So I'm going to read the questions and we're going to go through them. What is the story about? Is it about Kate visiting her mom and dad, Kate visiting her granddad, or Kate visiting Nan? Now I'm going to give you a few seconds to answer that question before we go on. Is it about visiting her mom and dad, her granddad, or Nan? Yes, the answer is C. You can even tell from the title, Kate Visits Nan. The story is about C, Kate visiting Nan. Number 2, where does Nan live? Does she live in the glade, out in the west, or in the pond? Good, she lives in a cabin out in the west. Good, B. C, what did Jake offer? A plane ride, a bike ride, or a camping trip? Okay, at the end of our story, they talked about how exciting it was for them to go somewhere and do something. They would cook lunch, look at rocks, dinner outside, look at the stars, and sleep in the tent. So does those 3 hints, does that talk about living a plane ride, a bike ride, or a camping trip? Good, it's going to be a camping trip. All those 3 of those things you would do on a camping trip. And number 4, what will Kate do on the trip? And we actually just went over that together. Will she swing, slide, and run, hike, cook outside, and sleep in a tent, or will she fly a kite? Good, we just went over that one. B, Kate will hike, cook outside, and sleep in a tent. Very nice job.